So, are you going to go mid-length magic or the proven fish of lore? The fish that dominated the industry for many years? Or are you going to go when Rob took that fish and extended it to 7 feet? You would think the Seaside and Beyond and the Seaside are pretty similar boards. Well, actually, they're not. They ride very differently. I've ridden a few Seasides, and I own a Seaside and Beyond right there. It's 7 foot. The Seasides I've ridden are 5'10" and 6'1". The 6'1" Seaside is pretty much the same liters as the 7'0" Seaside and Beyond. The 6'1" Seaside is 47.2 liters, I believe. The Seaside and Beyond is 45-ish liters. So I would roughly say they're very similar, very similar. Now what's interesting is that 6'1" Seaside rides a lot more like a longboard than the 7'0" Seaside and Beyond. Now, why is that? The Seaside and Beyond is a stretched out Seaside, but it's only stretched out vertically. You can't really stretch it out too much horizontally, or you're going to have a board that's 30 inches wide. Now, the Sweet Potato, I'm realizing, is the widest surfboard ever made. When you look at the Sweet Potato in real life, you're just like, that thing is monstrous. No way that rides good. I've been testing the Sweet Potato, and yeah, it's now probably one of my favorite boards. I'm riding the 45-liter Sweet Potato, and that showed me that when you take a board like the Seaside or the Sweet Potato and you do stretch it out, you would think that would end up being like this big floaty log crazy thing. Well, it's not really the case. The Seaside and Beyond rides more like a standard long fish or a long shortboard than a Seaside. Now, there's a few reasons why. And bottom line as well, if you're just like, yo, Travis, I want to know right now, do I go Seaside and Seaside and Beyond? If you want like a fish, like a stereotypical fish, you go Seaside. And you don't want to oversize it too much. Now, I'll oversize it all day because I love riding huge boards, and people in the comments are going to always say, you should ride it at this size, this size, this size. I don't listen to any of those size charts or any of those people. Now, I know you mean good faith, and I know you mean well, and you've maybe even surfed for 20, 30, 40 years. But people get to certain points in their surfing career, especially as you get older. Foam's your friend. You're going to get stuck in your ways. I am stuck in my foam is your friend ways. And really, there isn't that much downside, especially as you create more energy in your body and you become stronger whipping that board around. You're going to go to a smaller board and realize, wow, this thing is like a little skimboard potato chip. I can't get as much power and drive and spray as I want to. But back to my point here is that when the Seaside and Beyond, you get that if you want really just like a really big shortboard that can actually ride really big waves. The Seaside is going to max out wave height wise way sooner than the Seaside and Beyond. The Seaside and Beyond, I'm going to level with you too. I did a past live stream, and this is the Hero's Journey live stream. If you don't mind smashing the like, hitting subscribe for more surf reviews, surf gear, etc., I super appreciate it. Appreciate everyone always tuning in. But the Seaside and Beyond, the 7 foot, I have this weird thing where my feet, they kind of hit right at the bottom points. Now, I did a live stream. You can go to my channel and watch this. But so it's kind of weird. I have to kind of like keep my legs up. And it's a funny thing you don't realize with mid-lengths. If you're a certain height, your feet have to land somewhere on the back of the board. And if they land in a weird way, like on the Seaside and Beyond, they land right, I'll show you, if I'm still focused, they land right there, right on those little tippy tips. So those tips do not feel good on the top of my feet. But, you know, you do what you gotta do. Oh my God. This is not ending well. You do what you gotta do. And but you're not gonna have to worry about that. The Seaside, it's gonna be so much shorter that your feet aren't gonna touch the back of that. Well, because it's just so spread out and long, that's what makes it a great step-up board. What is a step-up surfboard? A step-up surfboard is a board you ride when the waves are big and gnarly. Usually, step-up surfboards are much longer. That's why mid-lengths end up being great step-up surfboards because they're thicker, they have more flow, you can get into the waves sooner. So really when it's like pretty big and it's just not top to bottom crazy gnar barrels, the Seaside and Beyond I think is a better big wave board than say like a potato chip 8-9 foot pintail skinny board, just because you're going to get into the wave way sooner and actually be able to flow and plane a little better if that's the type of wave. Now, a lot of times it depends on the type of wave, but in Southern California and a lot of America's big point breaks when they are working are slow, rolly, slopey. And that's where the Seaside and Beyond and the Seaside both excel like super, super. Like that's the best feeling when you're riding the Seaside and Beyond and it's like a slope, basically like a side of a mountain and you're just carving up and down and doing a roundhouse. That is where like this board, that's why I still keep it, even though I have my weird feet touching the swallowtail issue. I keep it for that, and then I also keep it for when the waves get big. It really is my step-up board, the Seaside Beyond is. You can't ride an oversized Seaside at this same leaders in step-up conditions. Really, that's going to almost go the opposite way, and you're going to ride an oversized Seaside in extremely small conditions. An oversized Seaside is going to grovel and be a longboard equivalent more so than the Seaside and Beyond. And that's where it starts to get a little weird. But once you look at the thumbnail, you'll see the Seaside and Beyond, it keeps its narrowness as it gets towards the tail, and then it gets kind of narrow towards the nose. The Seaside is literally squished of this, and it keeps the roundness at the nose and at the tail. What does that mean? That means when you're riding the wave and it's like not really pushing you, all that foam at the nose and the tail is going to help you just kind of slide down the wave, the little ankle to thigh high wave. On the Seaside and Beyond, because it is such a long rail line, but it's not made like a longboard where there's like tons of space at the front. There is a lot of space at the back, but there could be more, and it gets very thin. When you're on like a very small wave, it's not going to be as just like easy to like go down the line as a Seaside. The Seaside and Beyond, if you know how to pump it right, it can ride small waves good, but really it needs like a little, it needs something. So you don't want to buy a Seaside and Beyond as like your groveler. You want to buy it if it's a little better and you just like having a bigger rail line and a bigger board. And then you can also cheat it and use it as your big wave board, which is really nice. And per usual, I sound great. I look great. It's the lovely ZV1, just absolutely dominating the Zoom H6, and it's just the best live stream setup I've seen on all the YouTubes. But so I would say if you want to get a board to grow grovel, the crappiest waves ever, Seaside. If you want to get a board to ride like kind of softer, medium-sized waves, Seaside and Beyond. Now, also, both of these have the same fin setups. It has a quad setup. Now, I've ridden the Seaside and Beyond pretty much the whole time I've had it as a twin fin. The Seaside, I don't think will ride as good as a twin fin due to the board being compressed a lot more. The Seaside and Beyond, unless it's big and like it's my step up, I don't even like it as a quad. It's very tracky. And I have the Rob quad, so I think it's just the nature of me being more of a front-footed surfer. And the Seaside and Beyond, you have to get your back foot way on the back when you initiate turns. The twin fin, you can cheat that a little bit because the fins are a little further up. So your foot doesn't have to go all the way back, and it's because the looseness of the twin fin, it makes it a lot easier to ride the Seaside and Beyond as a twin fin. When you ride the Seaside as a twin fin, it ends up being like similar, but the fins still are pretty far back. You still have to put your foot back. And then it's just so corky that it ends up being like a lot looser. It doesn't have as much of a rail line to hold you. I learned that today riding the Sweet Potato 510, which is pretty much the same liters as both of these. Um, Once I took out the trailer, or even did like the endorphin fins 2+2 with the small trailer, I can't say trailer, it like turned into the most skatey skimboardy thing, pretty much unrideable, especially backside. It was giving me that typical backside surfing feeling when you can't really do turns, and I almost hurt myself a few times. But even getting the slightly bigger endorphin fin in the Sweet Potato, and it just lit up, and like that is the perfect fin combo for the Sweet Potato if you want to ride it as a twin or as a 2+1 or a thruster. The Sweet Potato as a quad is going to ride more like the Seaside as a quad. You have to put your foot back. You're going to have to kind of push, and it's going to plane and bring you down the line, but it's going to be more of a track down the line, not as pivoty. And that's how I like to surf. I like to pivot a lot. I want to be able to throw the board up, bring it down, roundhouse, throw the board up, not really be planing faster and have more hold, because I think I can have natural hold just with how I ride. I don't need the board to give me that extra hold. That's why I just need at least some kind of back fin, or the twin fin itself has to be set up as a twin fin. So I would say it's, the Seaside also, even though people say it doesn't size up good, if you're getting the Seaside as like your main small wave groveler, I wouldn't be that concerned with sizing it up. I mean, especially if you're getting it as like a high performance groveler and you want to just throw it around and be crazy, don't go too crazy. But if you're getting the Seaside as a longboard killer, then you can size it up, and it does ride very well like that. The 6'1" Seaside and Volcanic, I rode with only longboarders and stand-up paddleboarders. I was getting into the wave plenty easy, and then that's where the quad does work well when it's oversized, because it gives you enough drive to like be a longboard. The Seaside and Beyond, it's just so dragged out, the rail line and the board itself. The quad does help you drive, but then you get kind of caught up because you have to put your foot way back to turn, and then by that time it's a little too late. The Seaside, it's a smaller package, so you can put your foot back a lot easier after having the drive on a longboard type wave. Also, if you are just more used to a shortboard, you're gonna like the Seaside more. The Seaside is gonna be just a smaller board, and especially if you size it how you're supposed to size it, and you don't oversize it at all, you're gonna have like a 5'4", 5'6" Seaside, which when you're in the pocket of the wave, the board's gonna be so small that it's gonna be like surfing a wave pool. Shout out Country Club Surf Club. But you're gonna be able to just like pivot it up and down and back, and it's so small that your foot being far back enough isn't as big of an issue as the Seaside and Beyond if you're going to ride as a quad. So if you just want to have like a really shreddable groveler and you're surfing, small waves, Seaside. If you want it a little bigger and then you want to be able to charge bigger waves, Seaside and Beyond. The Seaside is not going to ride over head high waves well unless you just really know how to like handle it and you're okay with it being skiddy and skatey. But it's similar to the mashup where when the waves just get too big, it's almost like it has too much speed and you need to like just increase the fin size or something. But it's just kind of too much for the board. It's too much for what the board is. The Sweet Potato is pretty similar. The 510 Sweet Potato actually rides really good in kind of slightly bigger surf, but then I can tell once it starts getting above like, 6, 7 foot, it gets a little too just slippy and skatey. And that's when you maybe the larger fins will help. But really that's where wide tails, like on all these boards, start to deter you because you need a pulled in thinner tail to kind of hold and not let the board just slide out on the tail. So I think you can't really go wrong with either of these. I think the mid-length craze is somewhat dying down now. But if you're just an older person and you want like more of a longboard, but you also want a mid-length, I think the Timber Techs or even are a good option. They are stiff and big and kind of like they plow through chunder, but that might be what you want. You want to just plow through chunder. Now they make the Seaside and Beyond in Helium, so it's going to be like a little more light and not as plowy through chundery. But that kind of is where the magic of the volcanic material comes in, which, I think both of these come in. I'm not sure if the Seaside and Beyond does come in it. Yeah, so the Seaside and Beyond comes in volcanic reprieve lamination, which I'm not sure what that is. I think it's pretty much volcanic with slightly something's different. Let's see, technology. Uh, yeah, I don't know. It's just something slightly different. Maybe the reprieve is for like when the board is kind of bigger and they have to use reprieve, or maybe they're even it's back and forth between regular volcanic and volcanic reprieve. But um, I noticed when I rode the volcanic Seaside 6-1, it was definitely stiffer and definitely not as flicky as a Helium board. I'm really starting to become fascinated with the Helium boards because I really like how they can just flick out and in. And I can't even believe how good the 510 sweet potato rides. I mean, now it's almost like, do you even go Seaside or sweet potato? I mean, those are more similar than the Seaside and Seaside and Beyond, especially if you want to ride certain fins in the sweet potato. I think the Seaside and the Seaside and Beyond, they're only quads. You don't even have a back fin insertion. So if you're more of a quad person, that's where these boards really shine. So, comment below like which one you would prefer, which one you have. I think both boards are really good options, depending on what you're really looking for. If the mid-length craze is still upon us, you can't really go wrong with the Seaside and Beyond. I mean, especially if you're used to like the bigger, longer boards. I think the Volcanic or the Helium is going to be epic. This is the OG LFT material, which it like actually rides really amazing and sold me on just Firewire's kind of epoxy technology, because before that, all the epoxies I've ridden and even after, I haven't really liked that much. They've been just too hard. Like literally the surface is too hard. It has no give. Shout out Matt Parker from Album Surfboards explains that when a board has pressure dings, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. That means the board has some give, which is good. If the board has no give, it's just going to be this stiff piece of foam with glass that's not going to bend at all and flex, and that's just going to plow through. Which the TimberTech technology that's kind of for that. Even Volcanic is not. I wouldn't say it's like TimberTech, but it's more plowy through the water than Helium, which is going to have a little bit more bounce. But if you like the lightness and the bounce, like I'm pretty sold on Helium right now. Um, when I ride the Helium boards now, it's just like this lightness that I really appreciate. The sweet potato is insane in the Helium because it's such a big, crazy boaty board. You don't think it's gonna ride like it does, and once you start riding it, especially as the 2+1, it feels like a Machado Kata or a mashup. It doesn't feel like you're riding a Seaside really, and that's a lot due to the quad setup on the Seaside and Seaside and Beyond. So again, I think we got some comments here. We got Ryan saying Seaside and Beyond. I'm looking at for extra paddle and slower drawn out turns. I'm getting older. Copy that, Ryan. There you go, real time. I wonder when you said that, but yeah, I mean that's why I got the Seaside and Beyond. I think the Seaside and Beyond. I don't know why I was so into it. I think you know why? Because I had a 6'4" retro fish for a while that was a quad, and I just really liked it. It was like a Michael Dulce shape. Shout out Michael Dulce. He's like a hilarious borderline just Chinese cutout boards, but this was hand shaped somehow. It was in Virginia Beach, in Norfolk, um, and I kind of just wanted like a really big fish. And I've been riding my 8-foot longboard a bunch. So when I got the Seaside and Beyond, I was kind of more drawn towards the bigger ones, even though in retrospect the 6'8" would have been perfect. Just because I didn't want to lose like the paddle power and getting into the waves. So Ryan, I would say that like for you, I think it is perfect if you like quads. Like if you like how quads ride, then the Seaside and Beyond and the bigger version is great. Um, it does actually paddle really well. I don't want to make it sound like it's not as good of a paddler as the regular Seaside. It probably is actually a little better because you're not as corky because it's pushed together. It really is like way more refined than the Seaside, and it's just actually the dimensions of the volume, or they're organized better throughout the boards when you're paddling on it, even duck diving on it. Like I have 7 foot 45 liters, I can duck dive it plenty. It's easy. The Seaside definitely is similar, but just because it's compressed more, it's like a little more of like it's a little more difficult. I'm trying to think of another board, that I would suggest. Like Ryan, if you're even thinking about like just a bigger, like a longboard, some of those new Firewire longboards are sick. But if you do want like a fish, like a mid-length fish, you really can't go wrong with the Seaside and Beyond. I think another pretty sick board is what's it called? It's by Al Merrick. Um, Not the Walden. It's the Al Merrick, the Water Hog. So the Water Hog is a similar board to my longboard, and that really is like if I'm just trying to get paddle power and slow turns, like a rounder nose isn't a horrible idea. It actually ends up being more of a plane service, and you can put your chest more on the board, and it helps you paddle in and stay on the wave a little better. The Seaside and Beyond is a little more nimbly than you would think when you're up and riding. I mean, with the quad setup, the Rob fins, it is going to be like pretty tracky. So for you, that could be perfect. For me, it's almost a little too tracky, but it doesn't have as much area up here at the nose as like a round nose board does. So it kind of defeats the purpose of having such a long board if you're trying to like have a longboard cheater. Um, but I still do think it is the best option. I mean, the Sunday by Firewire is another good option. Um, I think they might be like getting rid of that board or not. I'm not totally sure, but I just see them less and less. They're probably keeping the longer versions. That is a dedicated twin fin if you're comfortable with twin fins. What's your stats, Ryan? Because that definitely depends. Like I would almost say you should just go if you're really looking for the Seaside and Beyond to be like a longboard equivalent. Like get the 7.2 or the 7.3. Um, Depends on how tall you are. Even try at the shop to lay on it if possible and see where your feet lay. Because like I said, where your feet lay matters a lot. All right, so you're a little guy, 5'6", 135. Okay. Um, I mean, you should go Seaside and Beyond 6'8". I think that would be like perfect for you. Um, you're almost just perfectly cool. Yeah, glad I could help you. You're almost perfectly sized, or it's like you could almost go Seaside. I think for someone like your size, you're more of like a typical surfer. You're not 6 foot and 190, and a lot of that size range, I think, ends up getting stuff a little smaller. But for you, it's like the Seaside could even be perfect because then you don't have to have that worry of where your feet are going to hit on the back. It just depends on how you want to surf. If you're more used to shortboards, go Seaside. If you're more used to longboards, go Seaside and Beyond. I think that's a big case here where like someone like me, when I got the Seaside and Beyond, I was so used to riding bigger boards that like I was stoked on having like a longer big board. But someone else will get on the Seaside and Beyond or mid-length surfboard and just think this is just way too much board. Like I don't know how to control this thing. I can't turn it, etc. But that's just because you kind of have to readjust how you ride a mid-length surfboard. You want to ride it powerful. You want to show it who's boss. You want to find a pair of fins that are going to let you ride it how you want. If you're just going to ride down the line, or even if you're still kind of learning and you're just riding more straight, the Rob quads and the Seaside are going to be great. And then even that Timber Tech material is going to be great because it's going to be just nice and kind of stiff and just have the hold that you want as you go down the line or get a little whitewater action. The Seaside is definitely going to be a little more kind of nimbly and quirky, and the Seaside doesn't come in TimberTech, only the Seaside and Beyond, which I'm just checking right now. But that's where the Volcanic stuff could come in handy for you. I think either one's sick. I mean, even check out the sweet potato. You know, if again, this depends on if you want to have a big longboard or a small shortboard. But if I had to pick the Seaside or the sweet potato, I would actually go sweet potato now, just after riding it the last couple of days, realizing that it has the 5-fin setup, and I like riding tri-fins more than quad fins. The fins have so much to do with the board that once you start realizing that and coming to grips with that and understanding that, it really helps pick boards, ride boards. A quad is going to be ride more like a longboard. A tri-fin is going to ride more like a shortboard, just due to how the fins are in the board. Now, obviously, the shape of the board and all that has a lot to do with it, but you have more fin. More fin is going to equal more hold, usually. Rob's 2+1 in his Machado Cado, I think in theory has the same surface area as his quad set, which is crazy. But if you look at the two side fins of his Machado Cado board that the fins came out, they're huge. Like they're big fins. But if you just ride them without the trailer, then it's not going to have any extra hold. The quad pretty much has like 2 center fins and 2 side fins. So it ends up being like a thruster on steroids. Like you have even more hold than a thruster. And if that's just your riding style, it can end up working a lot better for you. So it really depends on, this takes some experimentation and some bank account depletion, unfortunately. But really nowadays, there's a lot of shops, and Firewire does this a lot. They have like Firewire demos. Like I've been kind of dumb and just bought stuff lately that I didn't demo before, but now I'm like way in the boat of I want to at least try the board once before I do another $1,000 experiment. And it's like a car going off the dealership. It's going to lose half its value right when you go off the dealership. So I say this here at Ryan, I'd say that a 6.8, or I'd say like a 5. What's the 6.8 equivalent of the Seaside and Beyond? Let's see. So the Seaside and Beyond 6.8, which I think is the best Seaside and Beyond, because it's gonna be like still a fish and still like the Rob shape that he made. The bigger Seaside and Beyonds, I think actually are better for bigger waves. They're better when there's some wave. When there's not enough wave, the Seaside and Beyond, the bigger ones, they don't have enough like planing surface. Because the wave isn't kind of big enough, and you can't really go towards the nose as much as you'd like, because it's not like a round longboard nose. The Seaside is actually going to ride really small waves better, because it's going to have a wider nose, as you see in the thumbnail, and have more volume and thickness towards the nose. So yeah, like the equivalent to the 6.8 Seaside and Beyond is pretty much the 510 Seaside. So I don't know if, the 510 or 511 Seaside. That's 39 liters and 41 liters. I rode the 510 Seaside and I thought it was pretty good. I did ride it in kind of punchy, gnarly waves that aren't the best for an oversized growler like that, especially on a quad fin where you can't really pivot it up and down as much as you'd like. But it rode a lot better than I thought it was going to ride, and it wasn't the Volcanic, so I was pretty amazed with that. So yeah, I'd say for you, Ryan, you're getting a whole little consultation here. I say Seaside and Beyond 6.8 or the Seaside 510 or 511. I'll give you like the most float ever. I mean, you're so light, you might not be able to even duck dive those things. You might be too light for even the 6.8 Seaside. I mean, that's, what is that, 40 liters. So can you duck dive a 40-liter board? That should be your first figure out if you can duck dive a 40-liter board. I'm 170-ish, and I can duck dive a 45-liter board. I can duck dive like a 65-liter board, but it does take some strength. But that is going to matter. Like, you don't want to get in the water and not be able to duck dive the board. And you're so light that, I mean, if I just had to guess like what board to get, I would actually say Seaside for you, and I would go like I'd probably go like 5.5 or something. Like I would try to Seasides are luckily they're the most like popular Firewire board in the last 5 years. I would just go to a shop or a Firewire demo day and try a few of the Seasides, and then also try a sweet potato. Those two, I think, for you are going to be better than the Seaside and Beyond, considering that the smallest Seaside and Beyond could still be too big for you. It just might be hard to duck dive, so you really might want to be able to try that. It could be just perfect where your feet hit right above the points, but it could be just like my 7 foot. I mean, you're pretty much 4 inches less than me, and the board's 4 inches less. It might happen where your feet land right here on these points, and it's just not fun when your feet are just constantly hitting that. But you see how I was talking about the twin fin. See how far up the fins are? So you don't have to put your foot as far back. But when these fins are also in, it's a quad, your foot has to go like way back here. Up here, you get to sheet it about another 6 inches. So that's why I really like, and these are the NVS album twin fins. They're the best twin fins ever made. I would definitely check them out. I'll leave them in the description. But those are just it's part of the $1,000 experiment that kind of sucks because I'm sick of spending thousands of dollars on surfboards. I know everyone else is. It's, these are items that something can happen to them. They can break in half. It's like there's no warranty. There's no like you buy it and then it's not like, oh, if it breaks in half, you can get a new one in a year. It's like if it breaks in half that day, you're SOL. So that's why I really think nowadays it's so much easier to, if you're kind of iffy, if you're still in this like learning stage, use OfferUp, use Boardle, shout out, use stores that sell used boards. It's your best to try to not buy a brand new board unless you're like really on your new boarditis kick. But yeah, guys, if anyone else has any questions, drop them in the chat. I'm going back towards I want to ride a small board again. I mean, I have like a longboard, which is 8 foot, that I love, but now I'm like getting back to these super mega growlers I'm really enjoying after my mid-length phase on the Seaside and Beyond, because I'm realizing you do have to have a little bit of a wave. And at first, I got the Seaside and Beyond to surf small waves, but you need a little bit of a wave. The smallest of small, the Seaside is going to be for you, a little bit bigger, and then as a step up, Seaside and Beyond. Also, if you're just used to riding mid lengths, like some older people in the chat or on the channel might just be used to that, like 7 foot, 7.6, pintail kind of mid length shape. That's what you've ridden your whole life. That's what you're used to. Maybe it even does have a quad. Maybe it's a big center fin with two smaller side fins. That's what this board's going to be for as well. Just somebody who's kind of stuck in their ways on that bigger, longer rail. You're going to get on a short Seaside and kind of be like, whoa, this is just like kind of too quirky, and I'm not able to be as smooth paddling and down the line. I've gotten some of the best like gliding down the line ever on the Seaside and Beyond. So that keeps it in the quiver. But I'm starting to be like, do I need to? It's kind of beat up too. I actually tore out both fin plugs. So both fin plugs have been replaced, and it is doing a little bit of the redness, water coming in. So I don't know how much I can get for it. But really now when I want to ride this board, I'd rather ride a big Seaside or a sweet potato, just because now I like having a smaller board again. After going up in board size, down in board size, I'm back home, smaller board. So here Ryan has to say. Ryan said, we'll definitely check out Firewire demo days. Yep, it's sick. And try both boards, see what I like. I'm coming down from an 8-foot longboard. Okay, sweet. Yeah, so you're exactly the kind of person who like would look at this episode and be like, which one's better for me? I think for you, the Seaside and Beyond would be a little better just because you are used to a bigger board. Depends on how much of what kind of longboard is it? Is it like a single fin longboard? Is it a like Wavestorm longboard. That definitely matters because at least you're not going to make the mistake of going to a 510 Machado Cotto that has 38 liters because you're going to get on that thing and that thing's going to be a skim skateboard. Um, I think you're in the right boat. I mean, you could definitely go, well, you're kind of you're so light too. That's what makes me a little apprehensive to give you too much advice here. Tri-fin longboard. Okay, yeah, that's pretty. So Ryan has a tri-fin longboard. That's pretty much what my Varga board is. It's an 8-foot tri-fin longboard that I ride as a twin fin. I ride the same twin fins as in the Seaside and Beyond, and that thing like lights up. I can shred the crap out of that board because of the twin fins nature, and it has a pintail, a rounded pintail that lets the board blade loosen up. So because you're not on a single fin longboard, which I actually think would ride more straight and less high performance, you're already getting kind of used to riding a shortboard. Is your goal to ultimately ride a shortboard? Because that will definitely help too. And is this going to replace your longboard, or is it going to kind of work with your longboard? Like, do you want to ditch your longboard totally? Or like I say, you should always have a longboard. Like when it's like super crappy, some days it's super nice just to have a bunch of board. You lay on the board, you're catching anything. You're not concerned about the corkiness. It's just like such a great staple that I think a lot of shortboarders don't utilize enough because they think of a longboard as a Wavestorm or it has this big plank I can't move around. But if you avoid the big single fin and you go tri-fin or two big twin fins, it ends up being like a Seaside and Beyond, but it actually ends up being, I think, a little better because you have the round nose, you have more weight on the nose, and it's just like another 10 to 20 liters of volume. But yeah, I would say, your best bet is the Firewire demo days, which if you live in California, there's a few. There's also a few in other surf shops. And then also surf shops sometimes do like demos at the shop where you can go to the shop and let you demo the board for the day for 20 bucks. If you're in Southern California, South Coast, or no, Claremont Surf Shop in San Diego, they have a pretty sick deal where it's 40 bucks to demo the board for the day, but you get a $40 gift card towards like you get the $40 gift card. So basically you get a gift card for 40 bucks and then you also get that demo aboard for a day, which I think is a pretty great deal. So if you need a leash or you need some shirts or you need wax or a gift or something, you can kind of kill two birds with one stone, get the gift card for 40 bucks and try it aboard. That's Claremont Surf Shop in San Diego. I feel like if more surf shops did that, that'd be like the sickest thing ever because then you can just try heaps of boards. I guess the cost does kind of add up. But Ryan, how old are you, Ryan? Well, I don't know if Ryan's still here, but at least you're like going down this path and you're not like I said, going to the potato chip 511 route. So you've beaten the battle. The internet trolls will luckily leave you alone a little bit. And now in this new world, we're riding different unique boards is actually kind of cool. Ryan's in his 40s. Yeah, exactly. So you're not that 48-year-old on the 5'10", 18 and 3/4, 2 and 1/4 board in the lineup, not catching anything, which that's not as much of a thing anymore. But in the 2000s, I remember seeing plenty of those guys and always just wondering like why. I mean, it's ego, it's pride. It's sometimes guys, we get caught up in our pride and our ego and it gets the best of us. And I would see it in their eyes, like they were stoked to be out there on their sick board, but deep down they were very sad inside because they were not catching anything. And on the longboards, we're getting everything. I think either of those are great. Then I would say like the 6'8" Seaside and Beyond. You're so light. The Seaside and Beyond, the Helium, the new Helium 6'8" Seaside and Beyond could be sick for you because I think you'll just be able to duck dive that. And then it's so light, it won't be as like crazy boaty, and you're so light that it'll be like a perfect combo. Or this Volcanic Seaside, I think it would be nice because that's going to be a little more longboardy, not as quirky or corky, and still like give you all the paddle power you need, especially for the long crappy waves. Other cool boards are the water hog, but that board is pretty much like the 8 foot longboard you're talking about. Um, the Sunday by Firewire, like the 6, 8, or the 7 foot Sunday, could be another sick option. It is a twin fin though, and it could be a little too unstable for you. Um, and then also like check out the sweet potatoes for sure. The sweet potato is essentially like more of a gravelier board than the Seaside, which is kind of crazy. Also, Dan Mann shaped the sweet potato. Rob Machado shaped the Seaside. They combined and shaped the mash up. But what I've realized is that Dan Mann shapes, which is the sweet potato, are going to be like a little more pivoty and kind of a little more out of control. Rob's boards actually have more drive and hold, which is funny because you watch Rob surf and he looks super flowy. But I've noticed on the mashup, it's pretty squirrely, but the Machado Cotto isn't squirrely. The sweet potato is pretty squirrely for being like a tank. Um, it's unbelievably squirrely, the sweet potato. It's like kind of like, I'll grab it really quick. So hold on. See how many live viewers I lose while I grab this. Oh, I didn't lose any. Cool. Well, so here's the sweet potato, and you can already see like compared to the Seaside and Beyond. Look at the nose of this thing, and then just look how thick it stays, like to the nose. That is unbelievable. It's almost silly looking because it's so thick with 2 C's that I can't even fit it in the frame. Like it's just the craziest board ever. So this is a 510, 45 something liters. So it's the same liters as the 7-foot Seaside and Beyond. But even the nose keeps its thickness a lot. So I can pull this off without causing a crazy crash. Oh, this is not going to end well. But see, this nose is a lot more thinner than the sweet potato nose. Like crazy thinner. So the sweet potato ends up being a much better groveler. Because it keeps all that nose volume right up here. The Seaside is going to be similar, but not as crazy as this. So this is another good option if you're just fiending and you're a Firewire fanboy like me now. I guess I should probably add sweet potato in the chat or whatever. But yeah, if anyone else has any more questions, we're kind of getting a little long-winded here. But even in the background right now, you can see like the sweet potato. It's almost absurd when you're looking at it, like in real life. You're like, that thing's kind of crazy. Like, what is this thing? It's like it looks like it's not even gonna ride well. You're like, it kind of looks like the biscuit, the old Almeric biscuit, which is a Bonzer board. So it's kind of like a longboard because it has one big fin in the back, but it's super compressed and it has side bites. It ends up being like just way too stiff. Super flat, super stiff, pretty much like the sweet potato, but less width up by the nose. It gets way thinner, and it doesn't grovel that well, I don't think. And it's not in service anymore. But Rob Machado did have something to do with that. It's back when Rob Machado was on Team Almeric. So, but he kept a lot of those similar shapes and similar outlines when he came over to Firewire, and now that he's like, I think, a really good shaper, makes some awesome boards. He's definitely like, I love riding all Rob shapes. Like for me, a lot of the other shapers, they don't have as much volume up by the nose as the Firewire shapes or even Dan Mann. They get so skinny by the nose that if you're a front foot surfer, you're gonna have to kind of realign your feet, and it doesn't work as well because you're kind of surfing how you don't want to surf, and you're surfing it like a 2006 thruster with all back foot, and you're pushing down on the back foot. The front foot's kind of just sitting there not doing much. But with these boards, your front foot could end up being kind of, you can put pressure on it and help you kind of plane. And then when you want to go on your back, you can just kind of tilt back a little bit, push your foot back, and then it planes really nicely because it's so wide up by the noses, so it gives you all that planing surface. But yeah, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. At the chat, we'll end it right at 45 minutes. Appreciate everyone for tuning in to another Hero's Journey live stream. Till next time, peace.